Well, the number of parents choosing to homeschool their children has seen a huge increase both in the US and in Canada over the last number of years. Why is this happening, and what are the pros and cons of this type of education? Joining from Medicine Hat, Alberta is Sehn. He is a homeschool facilitator with Wisdom Homeschooling, an Alberta-based homeschooling authority. Welcome to Bridge City News, Louis.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about Wisdom Homeschooling and also explain briefly what exactly homeschooling is?
Okay, well, Wisdom Homeschooling was begun by Kenneth Noster a little over 25 years ago, and he saw a need for an education authority that was a little more closely in tune with homeschooling parents and with a stronger focus on meeting their needs rather than retaining a more schoolish focus. Um, so he started Wisdom Homeschooling, and the focus was uh, homeschooling for homeschoolers by homeschoolers. And we feel that one of the main reasons for our success in this area has been that we as facilitators are all have direct experience either having been homeschooled ourselves or by homeschooling our own children. So that's our focus, to provide supervision of homeschooling families within the province that enables parents to do what we feel they can do well.
And do you have an estimate of how many students are being homeschooled in Southern Alberta?
Yes, there. It should be noted that there are a few different options for parents who wish to educate at home. Traditional home education refers to parents being in charge of their education. Blended programming refers to the parents being in charge of a portion of the programming, and schools teaching the remainder and evaluating the remainder of the subjects. And then we also have virtual schooling, which refers basically to the school being in charge of all the courses, but the student is working from home, primarily online. Prior to COVID, there were approximately 13,000 students in the province that were traditionally home educated. That nearly doubled with schools changing to online programming during COVID. And then there's post-COVID, there's been a steady decrease, but it's now somewhere around the 19,000 students in the province still being traditionally home educated at home.
And can you talk a little bit about why there's an increase in recent years of parents choosing to homeschool their children? Does it have anything to do with the COVID pandemic, or is it also partially motivated by parents wanting to protect their children from the influence of, I guess what you could say, woke agenda?
Well, there certainly is a concern about the woke agenda. Parents are able to protect their children from influences that they'd rather have them avoid by having them at home. And parents, that are serious about the well-being of their children, and most of which are, they take that concern seriously, and sometimes they see it necessary to have their children removed from the school.
So for many Christian parents, their priority is to train up children who will put Christ as number one in their lives, even above academic achievements. Now, how do you think homeschool fits in with this?
Oh, the fit is excellent because being in charge of the education of their children, they're able to pass on to their children their family values as they see fit. The public school system doesn't necessarily have the same focus. So the need for parents to take control of the formation of their children in some cases is very strong. And so they feel they can do a better job of that.
And do homeschooled students end up being antisocial or even maybe even weird?
Um, Not any more so, I would think, than in the school system. One of the big benefits of home education is that we have this question that's almost always being asked by people who are unfamiliar with home education. Uh, are your kids socialized? And that's in many ways that's considered a bit of a joke among the homeschool community because their children are so uh, accustomed to interacting with such a wide range of ages and types of people because the peer group of similar aged students. So they're interacting with people of all ages, and they feel very comfortable doing so. And because they're very curious, they like to ask many questions, and they want to know everything that they can get to know about each person that they see. And for the most part, they're very comfortable doing so, and they're quite confident and outgoing. So uh, I wouldn't say that's much of a concern in the homeschool community at all.
And many parents question whether they are qualified to teach their children. Do you think that that is a concern?
It is a concern because taking on the responsibility of educating your children is it's a huge responsibility, and there's often a considerable sacrifice. Quite typically, the loss of an income in a family, which is no trivial matter. Um, but there are many aids available. We as facilitators are here to help the families choose resources, to identify challenges, to help work through to solutions. We try to provide the best help that we can ourselves. But then there are so many support groups here, there, and everywhere around the province and in individual communities. Homeschooling families get together on Facebook groups to arrange outings, get-togethers, field trips, even to talk about different options for curriculum choices, and even work together to provide for the educational needs of their children. There's so much online support, all kinds of many good publications to help educate parents. It's a daunting task, but it's quite readily done by nearly every parent.
And how would parents know what to teach their kids, and how do they, I guess, pick out a curriculum?
Well, the big concern as far as academics are concerned are, the three R's. Uh, but there are, also character is a major issue for many homeschooling parents. Uh, so there are all kinds of excellent resources and people who make it their mission to provide guidance for parents to be able to choose the resources that most or that best fit the needs of their individual students. So Kathy Duffy would be an excellent example. And many of the homeschool curriculum providers are very familiar with the resources that they sell, and they can offer suggestions also. But I think the majority of support comes from online resources, people like Kathy Duffy and other homeschooling parents, who the parents themselves may know. They get good suggestions from them, and we try to help them out also, trying to pick the resources that meet the needs of their children.
Now, is there any government funding available for parents and students?
Yes, here in Alberta, we're very fortunate that government has seen fit to provide financial support for home educating students. Parents can receive up to $900 per year for each student, and that's from grades 1 to 12, and $450 per child per year for kindergarten beginning this coming year.
Will homeschool graduates be able to attend college or even university?
Well, yes, they do, um, especially now that most of the post-secondary institutes are finding that homeschoolers are often among their very best students, so they become much more homeschool friendly. Um, Many of them, if your students are attempting to get into the maths and sciences or those related programs, healthcare, medicine, those fields, they need to demonstrate that they're capable students, that they're knowledgeable, that they can handle that type of study. So, the most well received credential would be the passing grades or strong grades in the core course subjects in grade 12. And homeschool students can, good, strong students can easily get them and excel and get into colleges and universities in the maths and sciences. So yeah, they can be very successful, and there are a number of ways of doing that. While you're home educating, you can use your own resources and then challenge the courses yourself, or have your students, challenge those courses. And by doing so, the student is given a grade for the school-based mark, which accounts for 70% of the final grade. And they then need to write the diploma exam in each of those grade 12 core course subjects. And that diploma exam, this is written at the same time and often in the same places that the students in the school write them. And that then determines the mark for the student, and which shows up on the Alberta transcript of marks, the same as for all the other high school students in the province. And that's quite typically what enables them to participate in those post-secondary programs. The requirements vary from institution to institution, and even within the institutions, with the various programs, because some are quite considerably more demanding than others. But for the most part, it's quite rare that students don't get into the programs they want to get into, especially if they're seriously attempting to do so.
And can you talk a little bit about some of the advantages of homeschooling? Do you think that it kind of brings more family bonding and, I guess you could say, togetherness?
Oh, certainly, yeah. There's because the students are spending the majority of their time in the home with other family members rather than the peer group at school. There certainly is a closeness there that develops that you don't find happening in this while your children, or most often happening while your children are in the school system. We ourselves have had our 4 older children were educated in the schools right through to grade 12, and we home educated our younger 2. And we had a much different relationship with our younger children until they left home. And after they leave home, your relationships are much the same. But homeschooling or have been educated in school. But we certainly experienced a wonderful closeness while they were school age that we very much appreciated. The other advantages, though, of homeschooling are great. The most obvious, love for learning, and very often a love for reading and critical thinking. That's probably the most obvious benefit, and then being able to meet the child where they're at and develop focus on their strengths and shore up their weaknesses where you feel that's necessary to do so.
And lastly, do you have any final thoughts on why parents should consider the possibility of homeschooling their children?
Well, yes. One of the primary benefits is you're able to focus on the individual student's needs. You're able to develop the love for learning, which propels their learning, and they generally tend to be very confident and excited about meeting the challenges that life has to offer, and they so often just focus on an individual strength or a gift or an area of interest and just dominate that area. Yes.
Sehn is a facilitator with Wisdom Homeschooling out of Derwent. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
I'm Angela Stewart. Thank you so much for joining us.